David Manfredi from Melvin Smith for the Architects. And I want to start by saying...
I can't hear you.
Okay. I just want to start by saying I'm not here to show you a specific design proposal today, but to show you some of the different site constraints, opportunities that we have identified in the context of much of what you've just seen. With me today are Jim and Al Hook, as well as Bill Zielinski. They have asked me to read a statement from them, because I think they're just a little uncomfortable addressing you directly. But I think you'll appreciate the statement. And it goes to their long history on the site and their intentions about remaining on the site. James Hook and Company, located at 15 Northern Avenue, is a retail wholesale lobster business that has been in operation since 1925 and is presently run by the third generation of my family. Obviously, no. The company is planning to continue a strong presence on the property, occupying the first floor of a yet-to-be-defined development project. We are looking to expand our retail business while incorporating our wholesale operation and to open a rustic-style restaurant to serve our famous lobsters and lobster rolls along with other seafood items. Our customers can expect more of an expanded variety of fresh fish and seafood along with prepared foods for the ever-growing residential population. Tourists can see the operations of a working lobster shop, grab a lobster or lobster roll, and take a seat indoors or outside while overlooking Boston Harbor. Boats may dock at our boat slip for easy access along the waterway. James Hook and Company has been a popular destination in the city of Boston for years, and we look to continue the excellence our customers have come to expect. That gives you a little preview of what we're thinking about. We've been retained really to look at feasibility. And as I said, we're not here to present design options. We aren't even so far as to really get specific about building use. We're here to study, we're engaged to study feasibility on the site. And simply, I think the statement from the Hooks described both their heritage on the site as well as their intentions to remain part of the fabric. And I think that the Hook site is at once both a treasure in terms of the continuity of that business and its relationship with the waterfront of Boston. And at the same time, a bit of an oddity in terms of being a single-story wood frame building with surface parking on an incredibly key, pivotal, and valuable piece of real estate on the waterfront. You all know the context. Some of these I'm not going to labor over very much at all because because of the context that Teal provided. I actually I struggle a little bit with the word gap in the urban fabric. I guess it is a gap. It is unique in terms of the waterfront as a kind of recall to a waterfront of many years ago, which was very much more car accessible, prominence of car over pedestrian. And I think that's where the real opportunity is here, is to think about the redevelopment of this site in terms of a four-sided site where the pedestrian really becomes takes the highest end of the hierarchy in terms of circulation around the site. And clearly, we recognize that this is gateway in both directions, to the Innovation District and the Seaport, and also to the Financial District. As you all know, there have been many studies, not beginning even, but in most recent history, I think 2002, the Fort Point Channel Watershed Activation Plan. And as somebody said just a few minutes ago, all of this edge has the possibility of active harbor, and as part of that watershed study, studied this from this site all the way down the channel. The Greenway District Planning Study, far more recent, and again, its relationship to the Greenway. Somebody else made the excellent observation that these sites, and maybe most particularly the Hook site, occupies this very precious piece of land between greenway and water, and it's at this point in the alignment or configuration of the two where you get down to a very small site. And it's the point where those two things come closest together, where you all hear in many ways to talk about the municipal harbor plan and the parts of the municipal harbor plan. And the point of this is simply that, again, this is a linchpin site that touches the different component parts. We've talked a little about Harbor Walk. I'm going to show you a slide that's very consistent with the UTO slide. The opportunity, obviously, to create better continuity from north to south, created by the redevelopment of this site, created by the raising of the Northern Avenue Bridge, and the possibility of making that connection under the bridges in order to be continuous on the edge of the water. Obviously, the Mayor's Crossroads Initiative. We've seen, many of you live through every day, all of the activity that's happening on the seaport, the importance of these connecting points. And of course, again, this is the one site on which two of those most important east-west connectors, the Northern Avenue Bridge and the Moakley Bridge, defines the site on the north and on the south. So again, this site has lots of urban obligations on all sides to make active edge, to engage pedestrians, to continue a more direct path for the Harbor Walk, but also the important kind of physical and immediate issues around traffic and signalization with the reopening of the Northern Avenue Bridge. And exactly to that point, the old Northern Avenue Bridge, how it impacts this site in terms of what is today provides us the dead end there provides some service access to both the building to the north and to this site will become again active streetscape as well as pedestrian corridor. And so lots of obvious things. The site exists between 3 roads, 2 bridges, and the water's edge, meaning all 4 sides need to be actively engaged from a pedestrian point of view. It's a site that's supremely connected in all ways, and at the same time somewhat isolated. And it's small. It's a postage stamp, and so we've got to try to accomplish a number of things. And as many of you probably know, there's different conditions below grade as there is above grade. The seawall actually runs through almost the middle of the site, and as the UTL slide showed, there's actually additional piers and structure outside what would be beyond on the east side of Harbor Walk. So it's a complicated site in many ways. And just quickly to understand, again, the notion of between 3 roads, 2 bridges, and the water's edge. And a very odd condition at the Moakley Bridge, because of the slope of the bridge, there's actually a gap between the Moakley Bridge and the site, literally the property line of the site, a gap that exposes water or water to the sky. Again, extremely connected, to be more connected with the reopening of the bridge, and yet almost an island. Again, it's a very small site, surrounded by relatively big buildings on all sides, but for the water side. And so we've begun to think about transitions, about all of these connections, and about activating 4 sides. I think we fully understand that that's the obligation, is that we do while small and with limited footprint, we have obligation to Atlantic Avenue, to Northern, to the Oakley Bridge side, to the Seaport side, as well as to the water. And visually, of course, it's absolutely three-dimensional or 360-degree site in terms of visibility to it. Again, the configuration of the Greenway and of Atlantic Avenue, this provides a kind of both visual anchor and terminus from Dewey Square down Oliver Street, and also from the Greenway to the north. And as I've already mentioned, what today actually creates some rather ragged urban edges, we want to create good streetscape. And what that means is, for us, what we think that means is that uses on the ground floor, obviously, that engage pedestrians, but also the openability of the ground floor, the ability to make those kinds of uses that the Hooks described extremely accessible, make that ground floor as kind of transparent and open as possible. Just the edge of the intercontinental, the ability to make connections between private enterprise and public realm in a way that can be changeable according to the weather and the seasons. Again, I think that there's a lot of work in front of us in terms of the vehicular movements around this site in concert with BTD. But also to think about this site. This site has incredible view corridors to it from both sides, say from all sides, obviously from the Innovation District Seaport side, from the Greenway, north and south, and also from the Financial District. And so what does that mean? Again, not in any way to imply big or tall, but to imply the importance and significance of the site. And the Harbor Walk and its relationship to the watershed, and the ability to really the rethinking of this site really does, as was pointed out before, create the opportunity to make a much more direct link in the Harbor Walk. And so these diagrams are really taken from work already done by the BRA. This is probably the most important thing I want to talk about is simply the site itself. You can see really how small it is, how little frontage it actually has, but it does connect the public realm east-west, but also north-south along the Greenway, and just as was discussed earlier, the possibility of Harbor Walk that can come out and under both bridges and then connect back up at Independence Wharf. And that's something that we're just beginning to understand. But clearly recognize the importance of that and to make that a part of the proposal. And so very, very simply, it's an underutilized parcel. It's a parcel that reflects patterns of behavior in the city that go back 50 years to when there was parking along the waterfront, to when the car really prevailed and the artery was above grade. To really create some definition, meaning that we want to think about edges which, on the one hand, define public realm, wide sidewalks, open ability of storefronts or restaurant fronts, but provide definition, because there is no definition. There's very little definition today. It's really the sidewalk blends into surface parking. The buildings aren't really used to define space, but obviously were built over time to accommodate function. And again, the restoration, rebuilding of the Northern Avenue Bridge creates opportunity to make that north-south connection, but also puts obligation on the north side of the site. And then lastly, the ability to make that Harbor Walk connection. And I think what I just heard from Teal is exactly the same way as we've been thinking about this, and I think the same way you've all been thinking about this, that this is the opportunity to make that very important connection. So I know that there's not a lot of specifics there. We've really just been engaged to begin looking at it. I think the Hooks have a real plan about how they want to think about the continuity of their legacy here, their heritage here. We've got a lot of engineering investigation to do. We've really got to get coordinated with the Northern Avenue Bridge and that work to understand how we make connections, public realm kind of connections on the north side of the site as well as underneath the bridge. And so with that, I'll stop.
So David, you said this is a small site. Can you give us the dimensions of the site? Can you talk about the two buildings, the pump building and the retail? Can you give us a sense of the dimensions of that, at least how much is parking?
Well, the total site, I believe, is about 16,000 square feet. It's about 165. About 20,000 square feet, which gives you the rest of that edge.
So there's aren't there two structures? There's the retail and then is there the pump building? We have a little discussion about those. Do you see those being combined or anything like that? Can they be? And also, can you tell us how many parking spaces currently?
Oh, I don't know how many parking spaces there are currently.
I was thinking about it.
Well, maybe 15.
And so I'll give you a very preliminary answer to your other question, which is that the buildings that are on the terra firma side, the intention is to replace those buildings. The buildings that are on piers beyond, the intent is to find reusability for that building.
So the ones that are over the water, like that are on the water, are related to the water-dependent uses, and therefore you would use another use that would be a water-dependent use, like the docks that you talked about, or is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's right.
Do you have any sense of dimensions, just so we have a sense of what?
Dimensions of building footprint?
Correct, the two buildings?
Well, the two buildings that remain within that the red lines, and then there's the little pier building. We don't have dimensions of a future building footprint.
The Greenway guidelines had indicated a 175-foot height parameter for that parcel. So again, that was looking at different height massing scenarios, looking at pedestrian level impacts, but I believe the Greenway study had specified 175 feet.
How long has Douglas been looking at that? Do you have a timeline or when you might have something more concrete in terms of what proposed there?
We've really only been engaged for about 30 days, and we don't really have a timeline for you because, Tom, there's a planning exercise, there's a financial feasibility exercise, we're not even at a point of tell you beyond the hooks what the uses are above that ground floor. We're into multiple alternatives.
David, I'm really struck by something that you said, that this is a building that can be seen from 4 different directions, even pretty far away. Is this a place, forgetting about height for a moment, where you and the family and maybe the rest of us should really be thinking about an iconic building that would really be a signature landmark in that location, other than just a whole box that you see lots of other places?
No, I think I hesitated to say that because it sounds a little grand without showing you something. But yeah, absolutely right. If I go back here, I want to go back to the longer views because you're absolutely right. maybe that's the best one. Well, I'll go to this one. It's because of, long views down Northern, long views down Seaport. The heights here at the new hotel are, I believe it's 70 feet. The height of Barker Crab is, 20 feet, say. So those views, but also these views all the way from Dewey Square. I get here, and I get here all the way up, basically, from the carousel, the Harbor Island kiosk to this site. So yeah, I mean, I think to your point, does that mean shape? Does that mean whatever it means? But that's the right word. Yes.
I'm sorry,
I think Bud hit it on the spot because you're not going to be blocked by by other buildings in certain places. So I think that's key. The other thing is, it would be useful if you could give us some temporary measures that you could do in the short term before you go for the big vision that could improve the site. I mean, we who work on the waterfront start planning now for the summer. And it would be nice if there was a little bit more, whether it's landscaping, vegetation, signage, and stuff, that could be implemented by the summer, plus the summer of 2015. It seems very bare, and I understand it's an interim building, interim site, but you're going to be operating in the bare way for at least one summer, potentially two, before you get underway with whatever you do. And it would be useful to have it a more attractive, welcoming site. We love what you do there, and client, and we love using the lobster rolls. And I've brought clients that buy the lobsters as they're on their way back to New York and such, but I think you could do more that would fit in what's happening.
Yeah, no, I think that's completely fair. We did a project in the Fenway years ago with Steve Samuels where we had a temporary parking lot because we had to do an enabling phase, and simply, did planting around the edge of that temporary parking lot in, those pots that flowered during the summer, and everybody knew it was going to be there for 12 months, or actually a little bit less. But it did give you a sense of both the anticipation and a little bit stronger edge. So yeah, I think that's a good comment.
You
Yes.
also remember, it's a small business, and they're directly affected by the Northern Avenue Bridge renovation. I think we have to cut them some slack.
Well, I'm glad you said that. Thank you for saying it. It is a small business. It's been there a long time.
Yeah.
It will have service requirements. There's some very good examples on the waterfront. We'll talk about our own project. But you all know Liberty Wharf. Liberty Wharf works without loading docks. It works without a curb cut. And it does a tremendous volume of business. And so there's a lesson there that you can solve those problems by a little bit of design and a lot of good management. So that's, we'll take our clues from that.
Linda, did you have a question?
I'd just like to second both Bud and Vinny. Short-term and long-term is that the long-term, doing something that's really iconic, that's there in a wonderful structure, because there are significant views through that would be lost with a larger building. It also is one where there is going to be a reasonably significant increase in shadow on the Greenway Parks as a result of some of the initial studies. So, and the visibility of this important. So we would encourage you to think really creatively about it could be just this wonderful thing, which is recognized as a small business. I mean, everyone loved you guys being there and wants to support you. And the second, just short term too, again, recognizing you're a small business to the extent any of us can help or support or dressing the site up just a little bit or making it better, I think it would be a good, it would economically benefit you and it would be a wonderful benefit to the public using that area. So I'm just supporting from the Greenway Conservancy.
Chris?
Chris, is there a definite time schedule for the old Northern Avenue Bridge renovation?
I believe design is running for the next 2 or 3 years, and then it's another 2 years beyond that, so it's a 5-year window. I know that design funds have been committed. Federal highway dollars, I believe, should follow for the rehabilitation of the bridge, but in general, it's about a 5-year time frame.
To raise the bridge and rehab?
And I think at the last meeting when Paro talked about it, they are starting the permitting process. The permitting itself will take at least 2 years and longer because there are federal agencies involved, the Coast Guard,
Landmark
civil
structure.
agencies, federal highway. So that in itself before you would actually see any construction. So the short term is at least 2 to 3 years, but this Public Works Commissioner has said she is committed and they have started the permitting process so that for the new administration coming in, they're ready to get head start. We're starting to get.
I hate to be cynical, but the old Public Works Commissioner said the same thing.
She's a
Plus, it
doer.
needs $50 million from Washington.
Yeah.
Any further questions regarding to Hook?
So what would we expect to see something a little bit more definitive for the short term and the long term?
I'm going to say, I'm going to look to my clients, but I'm going to say, you know, we'd love to be back and be able to show you things in 2 or 3 months. Yeah. He's telling me 6 months. I'm being more
He'll still be here.
aggressive.
Sure, it's on the agenda.
When the time comes.
We'll keep you informed.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, again, we don't have any representatives from Florida Atlantic, so we'll look to schedule them at one of our early meetings in the new year. We do have a meeting scheduled for January 22nd. Again, Rich McGinnis, Director of Waterfront Planning, indicated he wanted to sit down with the new administration to review this planning effort, among others, before proceeding with the next meeting. So I'll update everyone the schedule as we move forward. And again, look to at least get a subcommittee meeting on climate change preparedness lined up as well for the year. Again, we'll have a draft of the public realm waterfront activation plan out to you as soon as that is available as well for review and comment. So with that, everyone have a good holiday. I'll see you in the new year.
Happy holidays, everybody.